Is that also because a lot of these countries, correct me if I'm wrong, have brought, like, so for argument's sake, India in particular, like in this case anyway, brought in laws to kind of stop things leaving the country.
Mm,
So obviously there were I don't know, whatever the word is, opportunists,
mm,
people looking to make a quick buck who then were like, all right, we need to get stuff out. Like, is that, obviously that must come into play with stuff like this?
yeah, yeah. I think, well, yeah, we should kind of reiterate that antiques cannot leave India
Yeah.
under Indian law, and the penalties are quite harsh. And that has been the case since 1974, but not really enforced until a little bit later. So there was a kind of a grace period. But anyway, when collectors have said to me in the past, I've been offered this from India, I would always, say, don't risk it. There's plenty here. British looted and not only looted, but bought back so much from India.
Yeah.
Why? I mean, and the other thing is to mention, Omar, is that lots of Indian dealers, I'm sure there's some good ones out there, do mess around with objects.
Oh yeah.
The Indians haven't got that same. I know you've talked about this with some of the other panelists. Um, they haven't got that same understanding of conservation, restoration. They whitewash walls, and they
Yeah.
do the same thing
Yeah.
with works of art, arms and armor. If they think the blade's a bit rusty, rather than carefully removing that rust, they will put it to the angle grinder because I think, oh, that light looks nice and shiny and looks better, but it's just not
Mm,
not what is done. So I would always say, don't put yourself through that and buy in the UK or in the
yeah.
West, shall we say, things that have been bought traditionally and looked after.
Yeah.
That's what my advice would be.
Whilst we've been talking, I've heard you interchangeably use the term dealer and collector. And I think, to be
Mm.
fair, you're kind of somewhere in the middle because obviously you have your own collection, just like I think, well, your collection is far superior to a lot of other people's, but there are a lot of kind of like um at home collectors, whereas you've taken it to
Mm.
kind of a level or two above that. And obviously, then with the kind of professional side, you have to be a dealer in this because that is almost the business. That is your business, is buying and selling these beautiful pieces of arms and armor. But how
Mm.
would you how would you define yourself?
Yeah, it's really it's not a straightforward thing to kind of categorize oneself. And first of all, nobody is an owner of an object. We're temporary custodians. Hopefully, the objects will, outlast me. So, regardless whether I'm going to hang on to them or sell them, I'm a temporary custodian, and that comes, of course, comes with responsibilities, which I've already touched on. Um, I am a dealer. I don't have another job which can finance my collecting, for example. I'm a foremost, first and foremost, a dealer, and I have to be careful that I don't give myself competition or my clients competition. If I'm trying to sell something to my client, and the chainmail shirts, for example, the group of chainmail shirts, I did not take one out and say, right, I'm going to keep the best one and sell the rest,
Yeah,
which a lot of
people
people
do
do.
do.
I want to offer to my clients the best I can possibly offer. And, if I can temporarily look after those objects, that gives me immense pleasure. But by placing them, as I said, one set is in a museum and I can turn up anytime I want. And if I make an appointment with the curator, I can get him to open the cabinet, the case, and, I can, get close to it. And it's almost nice to have the responsibility taken away, of the care of it. But no, I do collect. I do collect things as well. I like to surround myself with art and antiques, um, and I do collect a few things in relation to arms and armor, but more so, I really like tribal art. I like modern and contemporary art. I'm following closely some of the shining lights of our community, Sikh art.
Just to add to that, I met you last time actually at Simran's. art
Yeah,
show in London, which
of
was a
course.
nice coincidence. And
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
one of the leading and shining
Mm,
lights of the modern
mm.
Sikh art world.
I like Simon very much, and I love what she's doing. And I think part of that is because she is of the generation that can fulfill perhaps what I was never able to do, is follow my true passion. And she's studying miniature Indian miniature painting. Fantastic. I'm so happy. And my kids, for example, I am letting them follow that whatever they like to do, whatever they're good at and what they enjoy. I'm certainly not going to be making any demands that you need to do medicine or you need to do law or so I'm really happy to see that. And we've produced some great artists already in our community and historians and people in the arts, but not very many of them trained in the arts. Certainly of my generation, we all trained in other things. And just look at what we've done. I listened to Peter Bance's podcast with you, and he did a science subject, didn't he? I can't remember what it was, but and now he's this leading collector and expert on Belief Singh. Um, and just imagine what the next generation can do if we let them fulfill their desires. So it's quite exciting.
No, definitely. Well, although you, as you said, didn't necessarily get the chance to kind of at first follow your passion, it seems that you've managed to find kind of a happy medium later on in life. And that's also led you onto the BBC Antiques Roadshow. Now, I don't want to give too much away, nor do I want to say anything that I can't say. So could you tell us a bit about that? And then also, when can people expect to see this?
Yeah, it's probably one of the most exciting and interesting things that I've done while I've been in the art world. Huge honor to be invited onto the program. I think it's one of the staples of British TV, right? Sunday nights, and the last time um, I saw figures published, it was 5 to 6 million viewers on a Sunday night. And just this tradition. I actually looked it up last night to see when it was first aired on TV, and it was aired in 1979, the year of my birth. And it's just hasn't changed format since. And it's just a really really nice British institution, and to be involved in that, such an honor. And I've got to tell you, it was so much fun. Honestly, I've just literally just come back from filming yesterday, and the other experts are great. They're just full of, they're just such characters. The BBC are not idiots. They choose. I don't know why they chose me, but the other experts are just honestly so much fun. And then the host Fiona Bruce is so lovely, so down to earth, and she, of course, is British TV royalty.
Yeah.
I grew up watching her present the news, so that's quite an honor to be working with her. And the people who come along, not only the people who bring their objects, but the audiences. I did some filming day before yesterday, and as soon as you go up there and you're in front of the camera, this crowd just appears from behind, and they stay afterwards and they want to talk to you and they want to meet you, and they want to chat. And honestly, it's such a lovely experience. But in regards to when and where, so I first recorded a valuation last year, and that was filmed. I remember you posted it on your Instagram.
Yes.
That was filmed. That aired on TV October, November, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That was my audition almost. Well, my trial, shall we say? And I'm very happy to say they invited me back for this new season, which has already started. I think they've already aired one or two programs, of which I'm not yet in. But I'm hoping that the ones I recorded will be later this year, so October or November. And some really exciting, they really threw me in at the deep end.
Yeah.
So doing some really interesting stuff. So yeah, watch this space.
And what is your role then on the show?
So I'm officially a BBC Antiques Roadshow expert, as they call it. Told you I didn't like that word. Those are their words.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm the if somebody were to bring a piece of non-European arms and armor along, then it would be me that they would see.
Yeah.
And I also do a little bit of non-arms and armor. So I saw a great group of Indian paintings day before yesterday, and I saw some Islamic metal work,
Nice.
some lovely ewers, Persian ewers. So yeah, a bit of a mix, but mostly arms and armor. There's a big team of us. So I did the paintings and the Islamic metal work because one of the other, Amin Jaffa, one of the other experts, was not there.
Oh,
so so yeah, you're going to be seeing me more and more on the TV, I hope.
no, I look forward to that. Well, obviously, staying with arms and armor, what is then the general perspective of arms and armor in Asia? Would it be better to say Indo-Persian when referring to arms and armor of the subcontinent?
Yeah. Well, Asia is such a big geographical area. So, if I may, let's stick with the subcontinent.
Yeah, sure.
For now. Indo-Persian is a good term for Sikhs. Specifically, Indo-Persian is even more relative because yes, the arms and armor that the Sikhs used were Indian, but there are huge influences coming from Persia. I mean, the Sikhs were at war with the Afghans for a long time, and chased the Afghans back into Afghanistan after they took was it Durrani, Ahmed Shah Durrani, captured Lahore, chased them back into Afghanistan. Of course, Persia and Afghanistan are right next to each other, so there's a huge crossover there anyway between Persian arms and Afghan arms. And then the Sikhs, Jasasim Ramgarhia was quite famous for attacking supply lines from Afghanistan. And he fell out with the Marathas for this fact, because the Marathas and the Sikhs did have an alliance, and there was a falling out because the Sikhs took their lion's share of the loot. So, I'm sure the Sikhs were using Afghan Persian arms and armor, and you see the crossover in decoration, in form anyway. So Indo-Persian is a really good all-encompassing term, and it's used throughout the arms and armor world because some things are so Indo-Persian you can't tell whether they're actually Indian or Iranian. It's really difficult to tell sometimes. So it's a good term.
No, definitely. What would then be some of the similarities and differences kind of across the subcontinent?
Yeah, interesting question. I'll start off by saying there are definitely commonalities. The talwar, for example, you will find the talwar as far south as Sri Lanka, actually. You can't really get further south than that. And then in the north, you will find talwars in Tibet and the Himalayas. And, I don't know the origins of why the talwar is so far spread out. But I can tell you the Sikhs were in Tibet. So I'm pretty sure that that's not the reason why, but just an interesting point. The Sikhs were in Tibet. So there's definitely going to be crossover. And even into Indonesia, actually, you find the talwar or a sword very similar to the talwar in Indonesia. And Indonesia was part of the ancient civilization, of the greater Hindu civilization, they called it, because of the kind of the travel and the supply routes, and it all kind of falling under one umbrella. So, but there are differences for sure. And we're still learning. There's still being there is studies still being done, and academics are still working on this. But I can give you a bit of a rough idea. I mean, it is a complex question, and without going too academic and geeky, yes, of course, if you show me a sword or a dagger or a shield or whatever it may be with a certain type of decoration, I hopefully will be able to tell you, okay, that decoration is Sialkot. There were some areas known for certain decorations. Sialkot, for example, Punjab, very thin gold overlay on metal, kind of stylized flowers, quite simple and very tight scrolling patterns. And then that's very different to the patterns coming out of the floral patterns coming out of Lahore, which are more Iranian in style, more Islamic in style almost. And then you get right down into the south, and they were masters of chiseling steel. There was nobody better in the world, I don't think. It was absolutely amazing what they were doing in the late 16th century in places like Tanjore, chiseling huge pieces of steel with these fine floral geometric patterns, these monsters, these whatever their desire was. They would, and this is a phrase that is used to describe it, jali. They would turn a piece of steel into a jali. I mean, it was really, really is amazing. It's a little bit like the food I sometimes like to think. I mean, you've got that kind of North Indian, very rich, spicy food that no doubt was influenced by Mughal cuisine. And then that doesn't have seemed to have reached the far south. If you have South Indian food, you still have those kind of almost Far Eastern flavors, those coconut, those heavily rice-based diets. What is the stuff they flavor their food with? I can't remember the name of it, but it's very different. South and southern and northern food is very different. So I guess the Mughal influence of cuisine never got, I'm not an expert on food, but never got very far south or to the extremes of the south. And, in terms of decoration, likewise on objects. And then another interesting, quite a simple way to look at it, Islamic art, and that, of course, applies to arms and armor, is very geometric. They love geometric patterns. And whereas Hindu art is much more floral, obviously there's religious aspects, figures many times, whereas Islamic art tries to avoid figurative decoration. So that's quite a simple way to look at it as well.
There's not just a geographical difference in terms of, like, say, north or south. There's also kind of a cultural difference in the decoration on some of these arms and armor, for, like, obviously, because if you have a Hindu background or an Islamic background. Where do the Sikhs come into this then? So, like, is there anything? So I guess I could ask for a general perspective of kind of like how Sikhs view weapons and how that ties into the wider history and philosophy of Asia, which I will ask. However, I also want to know if, like, do Sikhs influence arms and armor in the subcontinent in any way, or are we literally just taking what's there and running with it? Like, is there anything that